fundamental strategy for living well is knowing what information you need to achieve your aims. Once you know what you need to know, it's also helpful to know how to gather that knowledge. One of the best things that happened in the early days was being taught the value of study. The advice given was, if you wish to be successful, study success. If you wish to be happy, study happiness. If you want to make money, study the acquisition of wealth. Those who achieve these things don't do it by accident. It's a matter of studying first and practicing second. Would you like to guess how many people make wealth a study? Right? Very few. Considering the many men and women who seek wealth and happiness, you'd think they would make a careful study of them. Don't you agree? Why they don't is yet another mystery. Many years ago, I learned that some of the best advice ever given comes from a certain ancient text. There's a phrase in this amazing book that says, if you search, you shall find. So that is the way to discover new knowledge that creates new ideas. Search. In order to find something, you must first search. Need a great idea to change your life. Rarely will it come out of nowhere. But if you make a diligent search for the knowledge you need, the right idea will come your way, often when you least expect it. Capturing the treasures of knowledge here is another fundamental word for you to ponder. Capture. Great ideas pass by quickly and are easily forgotten, as can be true of those moments that make life worth living. That's why it's so important to learn to capture those things that really matter. First, learn to capture special moments. Use a camera. Take lots of pictures. Being able to capture an event in a fraction of a second is a modern phenomenon. And how easy it is to take phenomena for granted. Let me tell you about a recent experience. Over the past 3 years, I've been invited to lecture annually in another country. On my most recent trip to give a weekend seminar, there were about 1,000 people in attendance. Now, if there were 1,000 people in attendance, guess how many cameras were also in the room? Right? 1,000. Everyone brought a camera to capture the moments, the new friends, the new experiences. I ended up spending a big part of my time there posing for pictures. Have you ever looked at the pictures of a few generations ago? Unfortunately, there are relatively few still in circulation. But wouldn't it be wonderful if instead we had enough pictures to tell the whole story of what life was really like 100 years ago? So don't be lackadaisical. Make sure you leave behind your whole story through a treasury of photographs and videos. Another way to capture knowledge is in your own personal library. I don't mean the books your interior designer bought because they match the blue decor. I mean those books that are dog-eared and well-marked. The ones you chose to study and underline, books with notes written in the margins, books that helped shape your philosophy of life values. That is truly a treasure worth capturing. Today, with our expanded concept of communication, I'd also include in this treasure all the cassette tapes and videotapes that are shaping our lives for the better. That, too, is a special legacy. Finally, you'll want to capture all the knowledge you gain as you live your life. That's why I encourage you, as a serious student of wealth and happiness, to make use of a journal or diary as a gathering place for all the ideas that come your way. What will gradually emerge is an incredible treasure. Business ideas, social ideas, cultural ideas, investment ideas, lifestyle ideas. Can you imagine the value in this? Certainly, this kind of treasure is a more valuable heirloom than an old clock. How to gain wisdom? There are 2 ways to gather wisdom. One way is to learn from your own life. The second is to study the lives of others. Personal reflection, go over your life experiences. Learn the skill of reflection, which is the act of pondering life's events with the intent of learning from them. I call this process running the tapes. The events of your life are some of the best sources of information, so don't merely go through your days, get from your days. Be aware of what's going on around you so that you'll drive the grooves in the record of the day deep into your consciousness. There is a time and a place for everything. There are times to act and times to reflect. Most of us don't take the time for serious reflection. With our busy schedules, we often neglect this crucial part of the formula for success. At the end of the day, take a few moments to review the happenings of the day. Where you went, what you did, what you said. Ponder what worked and what didn't, what you want to repeat and what you want to avoid. Try to remember incidents as vividly as possible. Remember the colors, the sights, the sounds, the conversations, the experiences. You see, experience can become a commodity, currency, coin, an incredible source of value. But it can become all those things only if you take the time to record the experience, to ponder it, and then turn it into something of value. After all, it's not what happens to a person that makes the difference in how his or her life turns out. Rather, it's what he or she does with what happens that determines the outcome. And to do something positive about life, we must glean valuable information from it. Another good time to reflect is at the end of major periods such as a week, a month, or a year. At the end of the week, take a few hours for reflection to ponder the events of the past 7 days. At the end of a month, take a day. And at the end of a year, take a week to review, ponder, and reflect on everything that has happened in your life. Sophisticated people have learned how to gather up the past and invest it in the future. When my father turned 76, I said to him, "Can you imagine what it's going to be like to gather up the last 75 years and invest them in your 76th? Have you ever thought of life this way? That's how it can become productive and ever exciting. Don't just live another year. Instead, gather up the years and invest them in the next one. Don't just have another conversation. Instead, gather up all your past conversations and invest them in your next one." So start up a new discipline. Find out by observing your life what and how things work in this world. Never let it be said that you lived life without finding out about it. You may not be able to do all you find out, but make sure you find out all you can do. You don't want to live your life only to find that ultimately you lived only 1/10 of it, that you let the other 9/10ths go down the drain. In studying your life, be sure to study the negatives as well as the positives, your failures as well as your successes. Our so-called failures serve us well when they teach us valuable lessons. Often, they're better teachers than our successes. One of the ways we learn to do something right is by doing it wrong. Doing things wrong is a valuable course in life. Now, I would suggest that you not take this course for too long. If you've been doing something the wrong way for the past 10 years, I wouldn't recommend another 10. But if you can learn quickly, there is no better, more emotionally effective way to learn than from personal experience. When I first started my journey, I'd been working for 6 years. Shortly after beginning, I was asked, "How long have you been working now?" I answered, "How are you doing?" was the next question. "Not very well," I said, a bit annoyed at having to admit this. "Then I suggest you not do that anymore," was the reply. 6 years is long enough to operate the wrong plan. Then came the next question. "How much money have you saved in the past 6 years?" "None," I admitted sheepishly. Raising his eyebrows, the person said, "Who sold you on that plan?" What a fantastic question. Where did I get this disastrous plan? Hey, everyone has bought someone's plan. The question is, whose plan have you bought? Now, I must tell you that those initial confrontations with your own past experiences will be painful. This is especially true if you've made as many mistakes as I have. But think of the payoff. Think of the progress you can make when you finally confront those errors. Learning from others, another way you can gain knowledge is vicariously through other people's experiences. And you can learn from other people's successes as well as from their failures. One of the reasons a certain ancient text is such a good teacher is that it's a collection of human stories on both sides of the ledger. One list of stories is called examples. The message is, do what these people did. The other list of stories is called warnings. The message is, don't do what these people did. What a wealth of information! But perhaps there is even another message. If your story ever gets into somebody's book, make sure it's used as an example, not as a warning. There are 3 ways one can go about learning from others. 1. Through published literature such as books and audio tapes or videotapes. 2. By listening to the wisdom and folly of others. 3. Through observations of winners and losers. Let's discuss each of these areas one by one. Books and tapes. All the successful people with whom I have had contact are good readers. They read. It's their curiosity that drives them to read. They simply have to know. They constantly seek new ways to become better. Here is a good phrase to remember: all leaders are readers. There used to be a time when publishing always referred to printed matter, such as books. But today we can learn through the miracle of electronic publishing as well. I'm referring to audio tapes and videotapes, both of which are excellent ways to acquire knowledge. Many of the busiest people I know use audio cassettes to learn during unproductive times. For example, they often listen to tapes while driving in their cars. Listening to cassettes is an easy way to pick up innovative ideas and new skills. Did you know there are thousands of books and tapes on how to be stronger, more decisive, a better speaker, a more effective leader, a better lover, develop influence, find a mate, become more sophisticated, start a business, and thousands of other useful topics? And yet many people do not use this wealth of knowledge. How do you explain that? Did you further know that thousands of successful people have committed their inspiring stories to paper, and yet people don't want to read? How would you explain that? Our hypothetical person is busy, I guess, he says. Well, yeah, but you work where I work. By the time you struggle home, it's late. You've got to have a bite to eat, watch a little TV to relax, and go to bed. You can't stay up half the night and read. And this is the person who is behind on his bills. He's a good worker. A hard worker, a sincere worker. Hey, you can be sincere and work hard all your life and still wind up broke, confused, and embarrassed. You've got to be better than a good worker. You've got to be a good reader. And if you don't like to read, at least you can listen to a good cassette on the way home, right? Now, you don't have to read books or listen to tapes half the nice, although if you're broke, it's not such a bad idea. All I ask is that you devote just 30 minutes a day to learning. That's all. You want to really do well. Then stretch your 30 minutes to a full hour. But at least spend 30 minutes. Oh yes, here's one more thing don't miss. Miss a meal, but not your 30 minutes of learning. All of us can afford to miss a few meals, but none of us can afford to lose out on ideas, examples, and inspiration. It is taught that humans cannot live on bread alone. It tells us that next to food, our minds and souls must be nourished by words. Unfortunately, most people suffer from mental malnutrition. Recently I mentioned to my staff, some people read so little that they have rickets of the mind. Not only should you feed your mind, but you should also make sure you have a well-balanced mental diet. Don't just feed your mind the easy stuff. You can't live on mental candy. Think of your reading time as tapping the treasure of ideas time. And if somebody's got a good excuse for not tapping the treasure of ideas for at least 30 minutes every day, or not investing some money on the acquisition of knowledge, then I'd like to hear it. Some excuses you would not believe. I say, I've got this gold mine. I've got so much gold I don't know what to do with it all. Come on over and dig. The other person says, but I don't have a shovel. Well, go out and get you one. He says, do you know what they're asking for shovels these days? Hey, invest the money. Get the books and tapes you need for your self-education. Don't shortchange yourself when it comes to investing in your own better future. I was started on books from the beginning. The advice was, become self-educated. Standard education will bring you standard results. Check the income figures of those with a standard education and see if that's what you want. If it isn't, if you want more than the average, you must become self-educated. So I went to work on building a library, and today I have one of the best. A couple of books were recommended to get started. One was an ancient text, which I already had. It consists of many books, and my parents saw to it that I was well acquainted with them. So I figured I had a pretty good start. But it was also insisted that I get a certain famous book on success and wealth. If you haven't yet read it, I suggest you run right out and get a copy. I must have read this great book several dozen times. I needed to. It was said, repetition is the mother of skill. And the way my bank account was, I needed lots of skill. As I look back, the information in the book has been worth tens of thousands of dollars to me, and yet I bought it for pennies. This taught me a powerful lesson. There can be a great deal of difference between cost and value. Before, I used to ask, how much does it cost? But I was taught to ask, what is it worth? When I started to base my life on value instead of price, all kinds of things began to happen. Remember, you are what you read. One of the first things I do when I visit someone is to look through his or her library. I find out more by looking through someone's book and tape collection than I do through idle conversation. Mostly a library, or lack of one, tells me what a person is thinking, or if he or she is thinking at all. The choice of books and tapes reveals a person's predominant thoughts, desires, and values. What does your library say about you? You see, reading books is not some leisure, time luxury. It's a necessity for those who want to grow. So don't be like some people who thought that graduating from high school or college gave them license to never read a book again. Start reading. And especially read the kinds of books that will help you to unleash your inner potential. Are you now thinking about all the books you should read? Then here's some good news. You don't have to read all these books at once. Try reading 2 books a week. And if that seems like a lot, choose 2 thin books to start with. Do this for 10 years and you'll end up reading over 1,000 books. Do you think that acquiring the knowledge inside 1,000 books will influence the many dimensions of your life? Of course it will. Now, it's also true that if you haven't been reading 2 books a week for the last 10 years, you are 1,000 books behind those who have. Are you beginning to understand the incredible disadvantage you'll have in 10 years if you stride into the marketplace 2,000 books behind? Why? For some of the more sophisticated confrontations, you will serve as cannon fodder. They will chew you up and spit you out. But that's not all. You'll also miss out on some terrific opportunities because of a lack of knowledge, and your philosophy will be too shallow to sustain you through life's hardships. Missing skills, missing knowledge, missing insight, missing values, missing lifestyle are all a result of not reading books. Remember, the book unread is the one that can't help you. You can't read too many books, but you can read too few. Listening is a wonderful way to learn. Let me propose to you an outrageous idea. Choose a really successful person and take him or her out to dinner. A person with less say, and we all have less compared to someone. No matter how well we're doing, should invest in feeding a person with more. And then do what? That's right. Listen. Go ahead, try it. Spend 50, 60, 80, even $100. Go for the full 9 courses. Start with the hors d'oeuvres and ask questions. Eat the salad, it will take about 15 minutes, and keep the conversation going. The biggest steak in town will take 40. 5 minutes to demolish. Keep asking questions. Order dessert. See how long you can stretch the meal. Try for at least 2 hours. If you get someone like this to talk with you for 2 hours, you can learn enough strategies and attitudes to multiply your income and change your life. But of course, you're right. People with less don't take people with more out to dinner. That's probably part of the reason they have less. The hypothetical person says, if they have more, let them buy their own darn dinner. I'm not coming up with any money. And besides, if you work where I work, by the time you struggle home, it's late. You've got to have a bite to eat, watch a little TV to relax, and get to bed. You can't spend all that time in the restaurant feeding the other person. And this person is behind. Behind, he's a good worker, a hard worker. But you can work hard and be sincere and wind up broke and unhappy. You've got to be more than a good worker. You've got to be a good listener. Observing, the third way to learn from others is to observe. Watch what successful people do. Why? Because success leaves clues. Watch how the successful man shakes the hand of someone else. Watch how the successful woman asks questions. People who do well own the habits of success. They create patterns of winning behavior, just as the straggler creates patterns of losing behavior. You want to be promoted? Observe your superiors. Want to make more money? Observe how those who have more manage their money and their lifestyle. One of the reasons it's a good idea to attend seminars given by successful people is that you can observe them. No book or cassette, no matter how good, can convey the silent power of non-verbal communication. This is why video cassettes are becoming wonderful tools for total communication. So become a good observer. Don't miss any clue that can help you change your life for the better. Investing in the future, the search for knowledge, is one of the strategies for wealth and happiness. What a powerful thought, to spend time in a consistent, disciplined, purposeful search for knowledge. But as with everything else that's worthwhile, there's a price to pay. And this, unfortunately, stops some dead in their tracks. The search for knowledge involves making an investment. In fact, there are 3 kinds of investments it will take for you to successfully embark on this journey. First, it will take the expenditure of money. It does take some money to purchase books and cassettes and to attend seminars. That's why I recommend you set up your own educational fund. Each month, set aside a portion of your income and invest it in your search for knowledge. Spend the money to cultivate the sleeping giant inside you. That's a small price. The promise is unlimited potential. More important than money is your next expenditure: time. Time is a major expenditure. I understand that. It's one thing to ask a person to spend money, but it's an entirely different thing to ask him for his time. Alice, there are no shortcuts. Until such time that a machine can be hooked up to pour knowledge into the brain, it will take time. Precious time. Fortunately, life has a unique way of rewarding high investment with high return. The investment of time you make now may be the catalyst for major accomplishment. Finally, you'll be making an investment of effort. There is a great deal more effort involved in serious learning than in casual learning. In everything you do, be it self-observation, reading, or observing others, the intensity of your efforts will have a profound effect on the amount of knowledge you gain. A focused mind is like a mental rifle shot that strikes an idea target. And to be that focused takes much concentrated effort. But it is precisely this effort that will open the floodgates to the place where great ideas can work their special magic to bring you closer to wealth and happiness.